Hi, I'm Danielle, and this is Chatter Out Loud, a podcast where I share thoughts and TV reviews, starting with one of my favorite shows, Big Brother. In my last episode, I shared what to expect on premiere night, the live move-in, team captains concept, the HOH competition, and offer to the offer that was going to be made to the HOH. And tonight's episode reflected it all and much, much more. I wrote all my notes before watching any of my favorite Big Brother reviewers and my favorite Big Brother YouTubers. This way I can share my own thoughts that are fresh after watching the premiere. All right, so there's so much to chat about, so let me get started. So first, let's talk about Julie. She's the host of Big Brother, and I see this year she's sticking with the Julie Chen Moonves. I'm Julie Chen Moonves. I think that's nice. So her outfit, and by the way, I am no fashionista. I don't have a good fashion sense. I like what I like. But her dress, I think I liked it. It was a wrap dress, I want to say. I think what I liked about it is the color. And the color was like an orange, or maybe like a coral orange. It was really bright, and I thought it was cute. So I liked the color of the dress. And I don't think it's really a wrap dress, but it looked like it had some, it draped in different areas. I don't know. But the color of the dress was really, really pretty. The guests. Now, one observation that I made about the guests and their outfits, they were the same outfits that were shown when they were sharing their promos and those video clips that they dropped of the house guests. They were the same outfits. So that made me think, or made me question whether or not this was really a live premiere. Do you know what I'm saying? And the other thing that made me question whether or not this was live is because throughout the competition, the group competition, they inserted, I don't know how to edit that out, but they inserted live video, or actually not live, but they inserted video clips of the house guests in the diary room, sharing things like, oh, I'm so happy to be here, and things like that. So I don't know, was this really live? I'm not familiar with like the world of TV production. I watch TV, but the live sign kept showing up on the screen. And I wonder if that meant that it was live during the time that they taped it to broadcast on air. And I don't remember seeing that red live button like in the schedule, like on the TV menu. I don't know. I'm not convinced this was a live broadcast. It could have been like a live audience or something. Not a live audience, but I don't know. I don't think it was a live broadcast, because how do you insert those video clips of them in the diary room during their group competition? You know, that would have had to have been done before the competition or maybe after. I don't know. So you have to let me know what you think. But overall, just like every year, they introduce the house guests to us, right? So they stage these little scenes where the person finds their key or gets handed a key, and they get that reaction of them, oh, I'm going to the Big Brother house, right? And those are all cute. They're always cute. I like those. So the way they introduced us were in groups. And if you remember me mentioning in my last episode that they were going to divide the house guests into 4 groups of 4, right? And I was wondering how they were going to divide them up. And I guess the most neutral way was the way that they did it. So it was 4 groups of 4. The first group were all men. The second group were all women. The third group were all men. And the fourth group were all women. And so talking about the first group, that group was Xavier, Frenchie, Derek F., and Travis. And a few things that stood out to me. All right, so for Travis, in his introduction, he says, people thinks he's pretty, or something to that effect, like he's good looking or something, like, you know, just a guy that's good looking with curls and stuff like that. He said he was an island bum and he was a hardcore people person. Now, I don't believe the beginning or the latter part of what he thought. I don't think he's pretty or nice looking, and I don't find him to be a hardcore people person, at least not in the structure of this game. And I also want to make clear that I'm not, I don't intend, or I don't want to come across as criticizing his looks. I just think he thinks a lot of himself, and it just was a turn off. So I don't know. I wasn't a fan of Travis. The next was Derek F. Now, Derek F says he's gorgeous and he has personality. He was snapping his fingers. I find him to be so cute. And I think he just has the prettiest smile. I like him. I think he's going to entertain us throughout the season. I also think, like, at some point in the game, he's just going to be too much. And whether it's too much for the other players or too much for the fans, I think he's just going to be too much. So I'm interested to see if his personality, if he will sustain this type of energy throughout the entire season, and then how that would impact how fans view him or how the house guests deal with him. So we'll see about that. But I'm a fan. I like him. Frenchie. Frenchie described himself as a real life Old McDonald. I thought that was funny. And he keeps saying this phrase. I mean, he said it in one of his promos, and he said it on national television last night, talking about the risk the biscuit. Personally, I just want him to stop saying that phrase. I just want him to stop saying it. All right, next was Xavier. That was the last man in that group. Xavier describes himself as adaptable, which I can relate to. And he doesn't plan on revealing that he's a lawyer. He says he's going to say he's a bartender. And the only thing when people start lying like this, I hope whatever occupation that they're choosing, I hope they have the skill set to play that all the way through. Like, if he can't make drinks or can't have good conversations about alcohol or, drinks as a bartender that he's claiming to be, his game is going to fall apart. But I think he's a lot smarter than that. So hopefully picking the occupation as a bartender will work for him. But he doesn't plan on revealing that he's a lawyer. And I think that's good strategy. The one thing that made me laugh about Xavier was his comment about not wanting to get into a showman's, and that he was saving himself. He was single and he was saving himself for Zingbot. I thought that made me chuckle. And that made me revisit like my first impression about him, because and I don't know if I'm convinced, but oh, excuse me. I'm going to try to edit that out, guys. I hope that doesn't hurt the speakers or anything. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, in my first impression of Xavier, I thought his personality was going to be underwhelming. I still get a sense of that, but I don't think he's going to be like one to be quiet and just sit back and just observe. I think he's more vocal than that. But I don't think he's this big comedian. But we'll see. That Zingbot comment did make me laugh. All right. So when each group enters the home, they are to immediately go to the backyard to compete. Now this team competition, the group competition, it was a puzzle. They kicked off with a puzzle this year, and there were travel posters. So the puzzle were travel posters. Each group had their own poster, and the puzzle were 5 pieces of plexiglass, and they had to arrange the plexiglass to match the picture behind them, to match their group picture. And again, each group had its own poster. And this group, their BB poster, they called the posters BB Beach Club poster. And each poster had like a theme. So this group one, their poster was a have not poster. Right? And so just moving on. Who won that? Frenchie won that in his group. So Frenchie was the winner of group 1. Oh, by the way, and I'm making a note, and I don't know what I'm going to do with this piece of information, but I just wanted to make a note that Derek F. was the first one to walk inside the Big Brother house. I don't know where that'll come in handy with the game, but I just throw it out there. All right, so group 2 were all women, and that group was Azah, Brittany, Alyssa, and Whitney. And some of the things that stood out to me when those young ladies introduced themselves. So Azah, she said her father is one of 47 siblings. One of 47 kids. And she has over 300 cousins. I just was, wow. She describes herself as boy crazy, but she's not interested in getting into a showmance this year. And one observation I made was that Azah is pretty tall. She's tall, she's slim, she's pretty. I just like her look. I love her natural hair. And I think she's one to watch. Now, Brittany came into the screen just with a lot of energy and just loud. She does karate. She's a 4th degree black belt. She disclosed that she has autism. She was diagnosed with autism, I think, when she was a baby. So she got emotional when she was sharing that, she wanted to be representation for being able to succeed or do things, even if you have a disability. So I thought that was touching. She does have a lot of energy and she's loud. Now, in my initial impression of her, I stated that she had a little bit of energy. And I'm going to change that because she has a lot of energy. I noticed Brittany all night. I mean, she was all into the game. She was so excited. She just was, let's go. And she was there. All right. So group 2, their BB Beach Club poster was a backdoor poster. And shout out to the illustrators or whoever put together these posters, because when you looked at them closely, because I rewound it, the backdoor poster was pretty funny because it had the guy or the bellhop or somebody holding up a girl by the shirt and the pants, getting ready to throw them out the back door. I don't know. I enjoyed that. I liked it. Good illustration. I just like all the elements of the Big Brother game. So I thought that the time put into making those posters, whoever did that, kudos to you. That was a good one. Alyssa, she launched her own swimwear, and she thinks she'll have a good social game. She talked about giving these fake smiles. And she's another one. Okay, she says she thinks people think she's just a pretty face. Now, I don't know. It just is a turn off when people make statements like that. Like, she made that statement and Travis made the same type of statement. I just don't find her interesting. All right. Whitney now. She is another business owner. She has her own freelance makeup company. She claims that she has horrible taste in men. she shared she was on a date and her date wanted her to touch his calf implants. I don't know why she would share that with us, but it made me laugh. My opinion of her shifted a little bit because I'm convinced, or my first impression of her, I was convinced that she would be the one in the alliance that has no idea what's going on, right? And she would just be that vote. I don't think that anymore. Whitney came to play. She's a lot smarter than I gave her credit for in my first impression, and so she's one to watch. All right, the third group that entered the house were all men, and that group 3. Oh, well, let me back up. The winner of Group 2's competition was Whitney. So Group 1, Frenchie won. Group 2, Whitney won. Group 3, the men that entered the home next were Kylan, Christian, Derek X, and Brent. Kylan, he's Mexican-American and African-American. And my opinion shifted on him too, because I believe my first impression of him, I thought he was a little arrogant, but the arrogance wasn't forced. He was, in comparison to Brent, I thought, because Brent like oozes arrogance to me. And now I have that same opinion about Travis, by the way. Although Travis, he had to humble himself last night, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, I'm not sure if Colin's arrogant. I liked him. I liked what he did for his community. And I really didn't realize how cute he was. He's really cute. So I'm interested to see his gameplay. Christian, in my first impression of Christian, in my last, when I did the first impressions episode, I said I thought that he was on point when he said he was charismatic because his smile and stuff like that. But that was a short clip. Now, after last night's episode, I don't know if he's charismatic. He lives at home with his parents, and he is looking for a showmance. I don't find him charismatic. And the hair, like, he's all about his hair and his curls, talking about people can't, they love his curls and stuff like that. He had his man bun in the competition. And then I think they did a slow-mo where he was moving his head back and forth, shaking the curl. I mean, it's just a much. And I don't want to get into live feeds in this episode, but I did catch a glimpse of a live feed early this morning. And he was wearing a scarf. I don't know why that makes me chuckle, but he was wearing a scarf. So he's all into his hair and the curls. I don't know. I'm not, whatever. Christian. I don't think he's charismatic, but we'll see. Derek X. Now, Derek X described himself as nerdy, and he said that changed until he went up to college, where he said he joined a fraternity. Now, they didn't share which fraternity he joined, and I'm interested to know which fraternity that is. But he was a nice looking guy. He plays tennis. I think he's one to watch. I think he'll have a strategic gameplay, and I think he's going to be a target. So we have to see. I like Derek X. Brent. Now, Brent said he's going to rely on his social game. He's self-described as charming. I think not. And I don't know. I'm not a fan of Brent. I think he's arrogant. I think he thinks he got everything figured. I don't know. I'm not Team Brent at all. All right. Now, groups 3, their poster was a get a target on your back poster. I wonder if the posters had anything to do with the groups, It was like a subtle way of saying things. I don't know. Oh, let me go back to Christian because I want to just share a thought that I wrote here. Now, although I don't think he's charismatic at all, I did appreciate his gameplay, his performance in that game, because he was the only player to take out all of those 5 pieces of plexiglass, put them on the ground. He rearranged them. He solved the puzzle on the ground and then picked them up and then put them in the little casing, and he won. And I'm sure if they timed it, he probably was the fastest one. So he is there to play. I think he's going to have to rely on winning competitions to have a long game, this season, because he's going to be a target. But he was not afraid to play, and he was not afraid to show that he can win. So I did appreciate that about him. All right. And the winner of group 3 was Christian, by the way. He won for his group, or in that group. Group 4 were the women. They were the last group to enter the home, and that group consisted of Sarah Beth, Hannah, Claire, and Tiffany. Sarah Beth described herself as a seamstress and a nerd. She describes herself as self-aware, and I think I agree with that assessment of herself. I think she is self-aware. She comes across as non-threatening. I think that gets people far in the game, because there's floaters and they stay under the radar. So I think she's one to watch. Because before you know, you look up, she's the final 4. So yeah. Hannah, she is Indian and South African. She's extremely intelligent, smart girl. And she's another that's not disclosing what she does for a living, because I don't know if she was a prodigy, but she's very, very intelligent. She finished like high school at 16 or something like that. She got her undergrad by the time she was 19, and she's in a master's program. So you have to have smarts in order to advance or excel that quickly in education. So she's very smart, and she is not afraid of getting blood on her hands. And she says she wants to be evil in the game. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a 21-year-old for you, right? No judgment. I just think the naiveness that comes with, well, I wouldn't say naive, just she has no fear. She just wants to play. So I'm interested to see how that plays for her, or that works out for her in terms of wanting to be evil and getting blood up to here. Claire, she wants an all-women's alliance. She has no problem with a showmance. And one observation I made about her was that she's extremely tall. I didn't realize how tall she was. It just stood out for me. So she's a tall girl, and I wonder how that's going to work when they do that wall, if that'll play in her favor. You know, the wall when they hang on, and they won't drop off. They hang on and they like spray all this water and paint and all that stuff. The wall, I can't remember the name of the competition, but it's the big wall. And I wonder if that'll play in her favor. We'll see. And Tiffany. And one note, just like I made a note earlier, I don't know when this will come in play or if it'll come in play in the game or whatever, but Tiffany was the last one to enter the Big Brother house this season. I don't know why I'm keeping that note, but I'm just sharing. Okay. Tiffany, she is a CEO of her own business. She has a mobile phlebotomy service. And she's fit, and she came in to draw blood. And I thought that was funny how she, made that connection of her occupation, and she wanted to draw blood. I thought that was pretty cute. Now, first thing I want to talk about the girl. Well, no, let me go back to Tiffany. Two things that made me laugh about Tiffany. Now, first of all, I am Team Tiffany. I'm not ready to call for her winning the season, but I am Team Tiffany 100%. Two things. I mean, I relate to her as a black woman. She's the oldest on the cast. I don't know. I like her. I'm here for her. But there were two things that I related to so much when they showed her introduction. The first thing was how she chastised her son to come take out that trash and how he has to be responsible. I don't know. That was so relatable to me. Now, all black people are not all alike. We're not a monolith. We're all different. But that was a relatable moment. And she did that on national television. And I was like, oh, Tiffany, no, you didn't just do that to your son. So that made me laugh. And then the second thing that I cracked up, and I had to rewind the show a little bit just to see if I really saw what I saw. She had her cat on a leash, so she was walking her cat. Now, no, we don't walk cats. Like, I don't know. That made me laugh so hard. I'm like, does she have her cat on a leash? And she sure did. She was walking that cat. That was hysterical to me. The one other observation that I made was group 4. Those women were the only people that hugged each other. Like, yeah, they were so excited and stuff like that. So, I don't know if that makes a difference or not. I meant to say, when Brittany entered the house, she told all the girls, she's like, oh, you all are so gorgeous. Like, she has so much energy. All right, so let me just summarize. We had 4 groups of 4. Each group competed. The winner of that group became the team captains, and then we move on. And I don't think I mentioned who won in group 4. Claire was the winner in group 4. So Frenchie won in group 1. Whitney won in group 2. Christian won in group 3, and Claire won in group 4. All right, so after they all entered into the home and they played the competitions for the groups, Julie revealed the team concept, So she revealed, similar to what I mentioned on what to expect in my last episode, that whoever won that group competition would now be a team designated as a team captain, and now they're going to pick the team that they want to play with. And I really liked how they came up with the way that the people were going to be chosen on the team. In my last episode, I mentioned that they were going to be able to see video clips of the house guests and then determine who they want to pick. And they did that, but the element that they added to that, the another element that they added was the BB Casino jackpot slot. So they would be able to see the video clips, but only 2 at a time. And the way they played it up was that each of the team captains had their little button next to them, and when they hit the button, it would make the jackpot or the slot machine go. And the slot machine had pictures of each of the house guests on the reel, and then the reel would stop on 2 of the house guests. And keeping in mind that the rules required that each team had 2 women and 2 men on each team, when they revealed the pictures 2 at a time, it was either 2 men, and then the team captain had to pick between the 2 men or 2 women. So without going into who popped up first or who was chosen first, I'm just going to tell you the members of each team. And by the way, they have team names, or the team names were inspired by cards, right? So Frenchie's team name is Jokers. Whitney's team name is Aces. Christian's team name is Kings. And Claire's team name is Queens. So Frenchie wound up choosing Ozza, Brittany, and Derek F. Whitney wound up choosing Brent, Derek X, and Hannah. Christian wound up choosing Alyssa, Xavier, and Sarah Beth. Oh, I take that back. Christian's team wound up being Alyssa, Xavier, and Sarah Beth. And Claire's team ended up being Kylan, Tiffany, and Travis. And the reason I phrased the last 2 teams that way is because Sarah Beth and Travis defaulted to those teams, right? So all the other house guests were selected, and Sarah Beth was the last girl, so she defaulted on that team. And then Travis was the last guy, and he defaulted on his team. And that's what I meant by Travis had to humble himself, because he thinks a lot of himself. He didn't perform well in the group competition, like he didn't win, and he wasn't selected. He defaulted on the team. So I know a lot is going through his mind in terms of what happened, how am I now like a target, or why didn't they pick me and stuff like that. So I can only imagine what's going on in his head, especially when he was so not full of himself, but he thinks a lot of himself. So that had to be a humbling experience. In terms of Sarah Beth, I think that's going to work in her favor, because again, she seems to be non-threatening, and that's one they're going to have to watch in the game, because she'll float all the way to the end. And before you know it, she's in the maybe not the final 3, but she's in the final 4, but she's going to make go far if they don't pay attention to her. So now that each of the teams are formed, they move into the household competition. The household competition was named House of Cards, and the goal of that, or the objective of that game, was to build a house of cards, right? So they have teams of 4. So 3 of the team players will hold the rope. They're on these poker chips, and they will hold the rope, and the rope is tied to a platform, and then the head of household on that team will build the cards on the platform. And the whole goal is to build it all the way up and then run to the button and push it. And then it was a first, second, third, fourth place type of thing, right? Throughout the game, they had this huge, or this giant card. While they are attempting to build their house of cards, they had to watch out for the giant card above their head that would descend down and potentially knock down their house. I think that was the goal, right? So they would have to take that into consideration as they're building their house. Now, I thought that game was flawed because that giant card only came down one time. And to me, I think they just realized that it really didn't work because the card to me was huge. And when it did come down, it kind of tumbled over the player, and it didn't, I don't know. I think they thought through, in terms of coming up with the game, because I don't remember seeing this game before, but I think the concept with having that jumbo card coming down, hitting them, and potentially knocking over the house of cards, I like that element, but it just didn't work in this case. And I really and strongly believe that because they saw that in action, that's why they didn't have that card come down a second time, because it just didn't work in the game. And so maybe they'll revamp that, and we'll see it next season, or we'll see it work differently another time, but it didn't work in this game. Anyway, so each team played, and the team that came in first place was Frenchie's team. So when you come in first place, the team that wins, whoever's the team captain, becomes that head of household. So Frenchie, the Jokers, his team won, so he became the head of household. In second place was Claire's team, the Queens. In third place was Whitney's team, the Aces. And last place was Christian's team, the Kings. And one of the disadvantages of coming in last place was that team would become the have-nots for the week. And in Big Brother, have-nots is a terrible position. While I think personally, it's a good experience it's a good experience to have for Big Brother. Like, you can say, oh, I played in the HOH. I was able to play in the POV. I got to be in the Big Brother house. I got to experience slop and being a have-not. I think that comes with the entire experience. So, and it's the first week, so maybe people are looking forward to it. But nevertheless, the last place team became the have-nots. And have-nots means they're sleeping in that cold room, the hard beds. They only are allowed to take cold showers, and they have to eat slop. They can't eat snacks and regular food. They have to eat that slop. And I remember one year someone, like, to me it looks like oatmeal, but I remember hearing either on a live feed or maybe during a show where the person was saying that it's not oatmeal. It doesn't taste like oatmeal to them. And they only can have certain condiments too as a have-not. So they try everything with that have-not. I've seen people try to make pancakes out of it and shakes and stuff like that. So in the beginning of the game, maybe not so bad, but as they get through the game and people start getting tired and really taking off all these shields and becoming who they are, and it really is impactful to the game, and it's great TV to watch for sure. All right, so Frenchie is the head of household. The next element, or the next part of the game, was that after the HOH was announced, Julie, remember in the promos and her interview on ET and the interview with US Weekly, they shared that they're going to make the HOH an offer that they cannot refuse. And in my last assessment on what to expect, I said that it would have to be something huge or something really impactful to the game in order for them to take her up on the offer, right? No risk, no reward. And when we found out what the offer was, it wasn't, in my opinion, I didn't think it was a good offer. I would have made the same decision that Frenchie made, which was he didn't take the offer. And the offer was this. All right, so as the HOH, his whole team, or part of the game was whichever team won HOH, that team captain became the HOH for the week, and the entire team would be safe for the week, right? And so the offer made to the HOH was they'll get 2 weeks of safety if he played in this game to get the 2 dice or die on the platform. and they'll get 2 weeks. And if he didn't, and he had to get that die on the platform in like 45 seconds or something like that. And if he didn't get that on the platform, then they would lose the HOH and it'll go to the next team. But 2 weeks of safety, I don't know. I thought it was going to be something bigger than that. I'm not sure exactly what I expected, but I would have said no too, just because I know our team just won. They played their heart, everyone played, contributed to the HOH. We won for the week safety. Now let's just do this, because then, you get to talk to the HOH. People start coming up to you. You're starting to see like strategy into play and alliances form, and you get to see a lot of that as the HOH. I wouldn't have given it up either. But one observation I did make was that in my first impression of Frenchie, I kind of said, no, I didn't kind of, but I said, to me, I thought he would be like the paranoid one, like Howie. And I sensed a little bit of, I sensed an element of that because Julie could barely get the offer out before he started shaking his head. No. And I'm like, well, let her get the offer out, number one. I mean, he just seemed like he was so anxious. Like, no, I'm not doing it. They're shaking his head. And then when he finally, when we went to commercial break and he came back, because that was supposed to give him time to make the decision, he was trying to go on this long, drawn out reason of why it didn't make sense. He was trying to sound so profound. And all I wanted him, I just cringed when I saw that. And all I wanted to say was just say no. My team and I decided we're just going to keep the HOH the same and not take you up on the offer. That's all he had to say. But he was saying something like, oh, my family misses me. I miss my family. I'm like, dude, it's only been 1 week or 2 weeks or however long they've been in sequester. So maybe that's what he meant, because he's been away from his family since they've been sequestered for the show. I don't know how long that is before they actually go into the house, but maybe that's what he meant. But it just came across weird. It's not, we're in the first day of the game. It's not like you're in day 35 or something where now you're getting homesick. You're stressed out at the game and you're like, oh, I want to see my family. It just was odd. I don't know. But anyway, he turned it down. He already had his mind made up to me. I think he did consult the other teammates. So anyway, they decided not to take the offer, keep the 1 week of safety. He's going to remain the HOH, and now he'll get to hear people come to him, and he'll get to see things that others won't. The other thing I thought about when they talked about playing in teams. So because everyone on the team contributed to the HOH win, I wonder how that's going to play in terms of when the HOH selects nominees, right? Will the other team members feel like they have say into the nominees because they helped win, right? I can see if just the HOH people or the team captains played for HOH individually, but they didn't. The entire teams played. So I wonder if they now feel like the other teammates feel that they have a say. So I'm waiting to see how that plays out. If not this first week, as we go along, I think that's gonna be an element. I really do. The other thing that was announced last night was the grand prize. Yeah. It's gone up from $500,000 to $750,000. They didn't make mention of the runner-up, so I believe that'll still be $50,000. But to me, I really think that's going to make people play harder, and maybe we won't see the hesitation for making big moves. People are like, damn, this is $750,000. No, and they're going to really play to win. So I'm interested to see how the grand prize affects everyone's thought process when they're making moves now in the game. All right, so in summary, what else did I want to say? Oh, I made a note here. When Frenchie declined the offer, of course, and I knew they were going to do this, they said, well, let's see what would happen if you would have done it. And so he literally tried to do it, and he did do it. And to me, I thought that was foolish. I thought he should have just played like he couldn't get it on there. But then again, he just won the group. He just won the group competition. His team just won the HOH. So I don't know. Would have looked. And plus, he said he wasn't ever going to throw anything. But I think he could have handled that a little differently. Because I don't know, will anybody on his team now have in the back of their mind, doggone it, you could have won us another week. I don't know. I don't see that in Derek F. or Ozza or Brittany. So I think he's pretty good. But I would have just acted like I couldn't get the dice. I couldn't get the die on the platform. I wouldn't have given him my all, But that was just something to do for TV. So that was a good few seconds there, or 45 seconds, I should say. All right, so let me summarize. We had the team captains. The team captains picked the team players. Each team competed for the HOH. The HOH was offered an offer that they thought they couldn't refuse, but he did. Our HOH is Frenchie, and his team is safe for the week. They are the Jokers. And that team is Frenchie, Ozza, Brittany, and Derek F. The have-nots are the Kings. That team is Christian, Alyssa, Xavier, and Sarah Beth. So they'll be sleeping on those hard beds with cold showers. The next episode, before I summarize, I wanted to say that, let me see, I have a note here. Just 1 second. There was, so towards the end, like when Julie wraps up and I just look at the video just to see, I just try to observe certain things. And the thing that, when they were doing the outro, the thing that I noticed was Sarah Beth, Whitney, Claire, and Brittany were huddled up. And not like and I'm not trying to say they were scheming, but they gravitated toward one another. So that's interesting. So that was Sarah Beth, Whitney, Claire, and Brittany. They were in one area of the room. Then we had Xavier and Kylan. They were in another area, chit-chatting. And then Tiffany and Derek F. They were the others. So I wonder if we'll see like some type of alliance formed with those people. That was the only reason I called that out. I did want to mention that, I wanted to share my likes. Now, I'm not ready to call like who I think will win or not, but I am ready to share my likes and the people I'm not a fan of. And keep in mind, this is just in the spirit of the game. We don't know these people. They don't know us. It's just picking. And when I pick people, I'm not like, it's not anything disparaging against like their looks or anything like that. It's just what we see, what they have presented to us in the Big Brother world, right? And so as a fan, I'm just sharing my likes. So right now, my likes are Derek F, or the Dereks, I should say. I like Derek F. I like Derek X. I like Whitney, and she changed my mind. So that's I'm noting that. I like Tiffany. I'm Team Tiffany all the way. I like Brittany, and I like Ozza. So my likes are Derek F, Derek X, Whitney, Tiffany, Brittany, and Ozza. And there's only 3 people I'm not a fan of. And I think you could probably guess by now. I'm not a fan of Travis. I'm not a fan of Brent. And I'm not a fan of Alyssa. Sorry, not sorry. So the next episode of Big Brother airs on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The 2 nominees will be revealed. They're going to have a wild card comp. And it's an additional risk for a game-changing reward, as Julie describes. And then on Wednesday, we'll have the POV. And then next Thursday, they'll have the live vote. The first house guest will be evicted of the season. And so I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do these reviews. Maybe I'll do one because Sunday and Wednesdays are a couple days in there. So maybe I'll do one after the nominees are named. And then I'll do a second video that covers both the POV and then the live eviction. I'm still working that out. Yeah. Is there anything I want to say about this episode? I enjoyed it. I liked the premiere. I'm a Big Brother fan. I can't wait to see more. I hope you enjoyed my review. I'm going to be doing these recaps and reviews all season, so be sure to come back and give me a listen, a follow, subscribe, leave me a comment, leave me a message. You can find me by looking for Chatter Out Loud. I have this podcast, I tweet, I'm on YouTube, so just look for Chatter Out Loud and you'll find me. I also have links to where you can find me in the description, so check that out. Yeah. So my name is Danielle, and you're listening to my podcast, Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your support. And right now, that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.